If you're going to reinvent yourself to podcast, I truly believe that you need to hear the stories, hear of the journey of those who are already podcasting. Maybe they've been doing it for some time, or maybe, just maybe, they just started. Why did they start? What is it doing for them? How has it enriched their lives? How have they changed the lives of others? So once a month, we're going to have a sit down with a podcaster, and we're kicking it off this week. My conversation, I'm bringing it back, the sit down that I had with Evo Terra back in September of 2021. If you don't know this gentleman, he is a podcasting philosopher. He released the 40th podcast ever. He's an author, radio broadcaster, businessman. So buckle up. My conversation's coming up with Evo Terra. But first, this episode was sponsored by PodcastAcademyOnline.com. Virtual academy that graduates podcasters. 7 weeks, live online group sessions, heavy on how-to instruction, information, and accountability. Graduate with your custom design and functioning podcast. PodcastAcademyOnline.com was designed with the adult learner in mind. Now, schedule a free consultation. Visit the website, PodcastAcademyOnline.com. Greetings, everybody. Mark Olivet here. Well, you know, WomELLE and myself, we are celebrating podcasters globally the entire month of September. And, you know, we simply would not be here except for there are some people who started back in 2004. They laid the pavement, the groundwork for all of us to be here today. I'm here with one, and well, let me introduce you. And then when I tell you one major stat that he has racked up for himself, your eyes are going to just get really big. So thank you for this conversation, Mr. Evo Terra.
Hi, Margo. Thanks for having me here.
Such a humble guy. If it were me, I think I'd be dancing on my chair. This gentleman has been podcasting for 17 years. His first episode appeared on October the 14th, 2004. How do we verify that? Because it's over in the directory of Podcast Alley. Guess this. Here comes the stat that I promised you. He is the owner of the 40th podcast. There will never be another 40th podcast. And Mr. Evo Terra, he owns that. So I thank you for this conversation. This is wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome, Margo. It's a pleasure to be here and chat podcasting. It's what I like to talk about. So let's do it.
Oh, my. 2004. My first question is, what made you decide today is the day I'm going to do it? And then take us into how did you even prepare for that day?
Yeah. So if I'm honest, we sort of cheated. And what I mean by that is my partner and I at the time, we'd been doing an internet radio show since 2002. And as part of that internet radio show, again, 2002, way back in the day, we'd built ourselves a little website for it. And we had a blog that we were using. This was before before WordPress. We were using a service called Movable Type. Which predates WordPress. And we were already getting people listening to the show. We were interviewing science fiction authors is what our show was all about. And we had an international audience who were somehow finding us through the magic of internet radio and listening to our stuff every week. They just go to our website and click the real media player that we were embedding into our things, taking people way back in the day. And that's what we were doing. So when we discovered podcasting, my partner, I think, a couple of days before that said, "Do you know about this thing called podcasting?" To which I said, "I do not, but I will figure it out." So I went in and piece that was missing in our RSS feed. And when we launched our podcast, when we launched our show as a podcast, we already had like 119 episodes in the back catalog. So we really hit it early. You know, we just heard about this thing and dropped it. So for us, it was just simply another distribution point. We didn't know what podcasting was going to be. We were already syndicating our show to XM satellite radio and to a handful of terrestrial stations around the country. So for us, it was, well, here's another thing we can do. And that's the thing that has kept going, where the other ones have all kind of dropped by the wayside.
Oh, my goodness. You had over 100 in the can ready to go already. Yeah. That is phenomenal, because that was my next question. Did you keep going? Well, yeah, you kept going. You
Well,
kept that moving.
we did more than keep going. I mean, once we got that going and we saw what kind of response we were having, we immediately, well, I shouldn't say immediately, but I'll say within a month, we'd launched 2 other podcasts.
Wow.
That clearly people were hungry for. And from there, we decided to launch one of the first podcast networks. We were encouraging other science fiction podcasters or science fiction fans who wanted to have a podcast to build a podcast and you host it with us as part of their network. And then I went off and started a new service at the time called podiobooks.com, blended podcasting and audiobooks together. This was before there was a Kindle. This was before anybody was reading ebooks. Most people who were writers who wrote a story couldn't get it published because there was no decent self-publishing options at the time. Well, now with podcasting, which allowed anybody with a microphone to do their whatever they wanted to do, I talked a bunch of authors into recording their books as audiobooks and releasing them in podcast form. So we had around 700 or so books available at podiobooks.com at its height, pushing around 2 million episodes a day. So yeah, when I discovered what the true power of podcasting was and how it enabled anyone with a voice to say what they wanted to say, I jumped into both feet and have been doing it ever since.
Wow. You are a visionary, a pioneer. I mean, that's why, yeah, you are the pontiff, and we're going to get into that. You are the pontiff. You built the bridge for us on so many levels. You brought this internet thing to life. And I think that, am I correct? You really have kind of taken the sting and the fear out of what could be for podcasters these days.
Yeah, I mean, part of my mission in life right now is to try and make all of podcasting better. We've been doing this for a while now. I've been doing this for a while, and there are a lot of tools out there that make podcasting easier. And I am testament to the fact that it is a lot easier today in 2021 to make a podcast and to listen to a podcast than it ever was when we started back in 2004. In fact, it's getting easier by the day to do that. I mean, now there are plenty of applications that let anybody who has a cell phone just start a podcast right away. And while I appreciate the fact that it's been made easier, my entire goal right now is to make podcasting better. Remove some of the fear and the stigma around podcasting. Of course, we want to do that. But I also want to encourage people to have the best sounding shows that they can and make the kind of content that people really, truly want to listen to. Not just afterthought, this sounds like a fun thing. I mean, we have plenty of room for that too, but I really want to focus in on the people who want to make content that other people want to listen to.
I love that. I love that. You make podcasting better for listeners and you make it better for us, the podcasters also. I love that. Let's move over here to Podcast Pontification. I just subscribed. It comes into my email every day. And you are you are shaping the way I think about funnels and our analytics and all things podcasting, because who says that we have to do it this way? Because it's always been done that way. When things are evolving and they're coming up for us every day. So Podcast Pontification, that is your podcast, but you also give it to us where we can read it. It's in written form and in video. Take us there. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of fun to do. And you use the word upsetting and then backtrack that. I want people's mindsets to be upset, turn over the apple cart, think about things in a different way. That's really important to me as I shake up the way that you think that anybody thinks things might have been and why they need to be that way. My job, when I used to have a real job in corporations, one of the many hats that I wore was being a professional contrarian. And it was literally my job to sit in meetings, and when everybody was thinking the exact same way, I was forced to take the opposite direction. I'm here to say, let's challenge that. Not necessarily because I believe the opposite direction is true, but I want to challenge the thinking. Is this just groupthink that's going on? Or have we thought about other sorts of things, just getting people out of their comfort zone, out of that yes person mentality? what that means for Podcast Pontifications is, I've been in this industry since the beginning. I know all of the players, and I'm friends with the vast majority of them. There's a lot of things we do because of momentum, and a lot of things that need to be rethought in the entire podcasting process, because while it is, as I mentioned previously, easier to get podcasting out to the world and to consume podcasting, there's still more improvements we can make on that. And where I want to focus my attention is on the podcasters, on the people who are working podcasters, not necessarily professional podcasters who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or millions of dollars a year on podcasting, but just the people who consider themselves podcasters on purpose and who want to do that. So that's who the show is for. And as you mentioned, it comes out in lots of forms. I record the episode live for a handful of people who wish to watch me record the show live. And I do that, and I broadcast it out on my LinkedIn account, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. It's everywhere somebody might want to watch it while it's happening. You're seeing the behind the scenes, all the flubs and the mistakes, and me getting used to the microphone for the first time in the morning, my voice getting it all cleared up. All those little things happen. That's all part of the live video. But when I record the episode, I then edit down to just the salient points. It's usually less than 10 minutes long. That audio is produced and it sounds great because the way my process and systeming goes through it. I also take every single word that tumbles out of my mouth. I mean, I've got an outline I'm following on what my topic happens to be for the day, but I then take that transcript that I get and I rewrite it from scratch. Literally every single word is rewritten into an article, because the way that I talk is very different than the way that I write when I'm writing a book. And I've written several books. And so it's important for me that when people read my words, that they're reading something that sounds legible. The way we speak as normal humans, we don't talk in complete sentences. Sometimes our thoughts are random and spoiled and we struggle for words. And that's all part of the normal, natural conversation that you can hear during the podcast episode. But when you're reading the article, if that's what someone wants to do, I want them to get the best thing they possibly can. I want my full thoughts out of my head. I almost consider the podcast episode, the audio, to be a rough draft. And then the article that I write is the polished piece that comes out of the other end. And as you know, Margot, I make that available now. If anybody subscribes to Podcast Pontifications for free, you will get an email every day, at least Monday through Thursday at 10 o'clock Phoenix time, that has a link to the edited MP3 file, as well as that article that you mentioned, that full rewrite, right there in your inbox, which makes it as one nice, easy way to consume the content.
It is so worth it. I tell you, I love what you say, working podcasters, because we've taken it one step. We're not the hobbyists and hit and miss. This thing is important to us. And I think that you'll find most working podcasters really are striving for excellence, to give the best of themselves, the best of that their equipment will give to everyone, the best content, just the best of everything. So when we subscribe to Podcast Pontification, then we have access to learning from the master, I would say, and shaping our minds so that we all can go hand in hand on making this industry a lot better, stronger, much more progressive. Those are my thoughts. What say you, sir?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for. I'm trying to equip people with the right mindset, the right mentality, so that they're not just looking for gimme answers. They're able to think differently and calling the question some of the things that we think we hold dear and true, because again, it's not always. And one thing I want to say as well is I've been doing this for a long time, but longevity isn't enough, because people who've been doing things for a long time oftentimes haven't really changed their approach and their process since they started. I can tell you, I've reinvented the way I make podcasts at least a dozen times in the 17 years I've been doing it. Just since I started Podcast Pontifications back in, 2018, I think, 2018. I've changed the way I do that 3 different times, because this is an evolving, ever-changing medium that we are in. And the way that I made podcasting in 2004 is very unlike the way that I make podcasts in 2011. And I will bet you that by the time, let's pick a number, let's pick 2031, let's go 10 years out, It'll be totally revolutionized. There's a completely different process that will be in place. Will all those old ways work? Yeah, sure. I mean, just like I could still, make a record by making grooves in a wax cylinder. I suppose I could do that, but why would you want to do that today? It'll be the same thing for podcasting. So yeah, I've done this for a long time and I'm old, but I'm also trying to do my best to hold on to the newest and best ways to do things, because that's what we need in podcasting. We need to respect what came before. Yes, stand on the shoulders of giants, all of that stuff, but let's adapt. Let's make sure that we're doing the right things today and tomorrow to keep podcasts growing.
Oh my goodness. That is what we need to hear, because so many people want to get stuck in the groove. They want to learn and they're stuck and they haven't changed. So what you're doing, Evo, is giving us permission to evolve.
Yeah.
As in this industry, we have to move, shake things up, shake ourselves up, and energize the atmosphere for all podcasters. We have to join in with that, correct?
Yeah, we really do, because it's a rich and vibrant community. Before we started talking, before we started recording the conversation, you mentioned going to PodFest in Florida and that podcast conference and podcasting conferences. And look, let's face the reality. We're in the middle of a deadly pandemic, and I understand people's concerns about traveling. I get it. I'm right there with you. Haven't left my house in a long time. But when it's safe to do so, once again, the minute you can get out and engage with the community in these live one-on-one situations like podcast conferences provide, or even podcast meetups, whatever you can do, it changes the dynamic. It changes your brain when it's not just you and a microphone, when it's you and one other person, and you have one thing in common. You make podcasts. I have not seen a time when I've had a conversation with someone or a meetup or an event where that didn't cause some shift, that I didn't learn something from somebody I was interacting with live one-on-one. We can approximate with doing it in virtual, because we have to do that today. But as soon as we can't do that, man, I highly recommend get thee to a podcast conference. You will love it.
Something about that synergy and energy, it gets us in the mix and makes us feel as though we belong, because we do. You may mention that we are a community. I have found, because I've only been doing this really podcasting since 2017, I have found that podcasters are the most giving people. And you forerunners are you come out, there are no silos. There are no them and us, and we're family and we're community, and we care about this industry. So I have one final question. Sure. We see what's going on in this industry. The big boys are coming in. The celebrities are getting all the pub, the shine, the glitz, the glamour, everything. And I guess there's a place for that. But what about the person that says, I have a message? I've been testing this. I'm going to throw my bread out on the water and see what happens. What do you say to that person?
I say do it. Every time a celebrity joins in the podcasting space and somebody throws a lot of money their way, that's a good thing for us. Every time a big media companies like Amazon recently said, I think we should get into podcasting, that's all good news for us. Yes, it does suck a lot of oxygen out of the room when it comes to the press and getting decent coverage on things, because they've got lots of money to throw at these things. But keep this in mind. Right now, there are roughly 4 million podcasts out there. 4 million podcasts is kind of the current number of how many shows are available, valid shows. If you wanted to look them up, you can. 4 million is way too many for any one person to listen to. 400,000, also too many for one person to listen to. There's always a lot of room out there, but this is a digital product. There's no scarcity. There's no space on the shelf we're trying to compete for. You're not competing against 4 million podcasts. No, you're not really competing against anyone. You brought up the notion of the people who've been doing this for a while, set it up from that way. And you're right. We never thought about this as competition. We always use the word co-opetition, because we know that if we can get more attention on certain shows than people who don't yet listen to podcasts. By the way, only around 30% of Americans listen to podcasts on a regular basis. Only 30%. It's around 100 million Americans listen every week. But as these big celebrities make shows, more people go, I've heard about this thing called podcasting, because almost everyone has heard the term podcasting. Maybe I should finally try it. And maybe they will try that celebrity show. And maybe they'll say, well, that was interesting. I wonder what else is out there. And they'll start exploring and looking for new content. So that helps all of us. So come on, celebrities. I'm all for it.
Well, I tell you, Evo Terra, it has been wonderful. I am so grateful to be a sister podcaster with you. I really, really am. This is so great. And wow. Thank you everyone for taking time to listen to this conversation. You never want to act as though you know it all. I learned so much just from this conversation. And as you pay attention to what's happening with Hey Podcaster throughout the month of September, you are going to find from every panel discussion, from every conversation, there is encyclopedia, a world full of information and inspiration that is going to, as Evo says, it's going to help you change your thinking. You're going to come away and be changed. That's my promise to everyone. So Evo Terra, oh my goodness, I thank you. I thank you. This has been great. I don't want to get off, but I feel as though I should give you the floor one more time. Is there one final thing that you want to say? Because I know that you do look into the future of podcasting. Is there one final nugget that you want to give us? And I promise I'm going to release you.
Well, no worries, Margo. I could talk about podcasting all day. I kind of do talk about podcasting all day. I think if there's a takeaway that I want people to think about, where we're at today in September of 2021, looking back at the 17 years that have come before us, yes, it's a wonderful time, but always keep looking towards the future. What's next? What's the next thing we're going to be doing? And sometimes those things look really exciting and they turn out not to be very exciting. Hey, that's okay. I don't worry about what's replacing podcasting. I worry about what podcast is going to augment in everybody else's lives. And I hope you do the same thing. Let's look at podcasting as a way to extend and make things better, because let's make the future better together. Why not?
Sounds good to me. Wow. Evo Terra, the creator and the founder, the podcaster for Podcast Pontifications. You'll find it where all of the awesome podcasts are found, all of the platforms, and simpler media. For those that really want to get into podcasting, or maybe you started and you stopped and you need some help, check with Evo, okay? I think if you're going to go ahead and get into this industry, you owe it to yourself to go with someone who can really help you build that foundation, correct what is not going right for you, because this is an awesome, awesome thing. Also, go over to Amazon. He has his series of dummies books. You can just go over to Amazon and you will find them all about podcasting. So thank you again, Evo. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'll see you next time. I'll see you on another conversation. Bye-bye now. Thanks, Evo.
Thanks, Margo.
Oh, now why won't this let me leave? Is this going to be a blooper?
You're still recording. Click the button that says recording on the bottom.
I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.